I like to say that food sovereignty and ultimately sovereignty is deciding what has value and what that value is. My name is Trent Kissee, and I'm the Director of the Division of Ag and Natural Resources at the Muscogee Creek Nation. I grew up in northeastern Oklahoma on my family's allotment land, actually, in Ottawa County in Eastern Shawnee territory. Had a few cows. My grandpa raised a few bison. We always had a garden. And so from early on, I was in love with the land, in love with being outdoors. My family hunts and fishes. We ate primarily wild game growing up. And a lot of that was to do with affordability, and a lot of it was to do with availability. We ate a lot of stuff that we either raised or kind of shared with other farmers and stuff. I was passionate about agriculture from a young age, and so whenever I started thinking about what I was going to do after school, I decided to go ultimately and get my degree from Oklahoma State University in natural resources, ecology, and management. I've always been really interested in policy and government programs. I think it's a really effective lever. My grandpa was on our tribal council all growing up. He worked for our tribe as well. He was the director of the education department there. So he saw the value in educating our native youth and helping us find career pathways that not only were interesting to us, but that would provide good jobs, ultimately back home on our reservations. I think that's the goal of all the elders, right? Is to get their youth educated and get them some life experience. But ultimately, they hope they'll go and get those experiences and that education, but then come back home and put that to use to better serve our communities. My grandpa was one of the guys that I look up to most of my life, and like I said, he kind of got me involved in all this. And so feeding our people has always been something that was modeled to me. There were times growing up I can remember, I know looking back now that we didn't have everything we needed, but he was always giving food away. He was always taking care of other people. We talk a lot about sustainability in agriculture. That's sort of a catchphrase that's out there, but I always talk about the fact that tribes can't leave. Like we don't want to leave. This is home. We can't uproot when the land's depleted and go somewhere else. We can't chase labor that's cheaper elsewhere. We want to build the communities that we're in, and to me, that's the ultimate definition of sustainability. This is where a lot of our ancestors are buried. This is where our family homes have been for generations. This is where we're at. And so ultimately, I think it means a little bit more when you know that running is not an option. So you gotta learn how to live where you're at. And I think all that kind of ties together, and with the soil health and the water health, it's just being a good steward, making sure that that's here for future generations. The food sovereignty movement that we talk a lot about, I think tribal communities have always been about that, because it's about meeting the most basic need. And once our most basic needs are met, then we can really start to flourish and we can focus on other issues. I think a lot of times philanthropic folks and even other governments kind of miss the boat when they ask, what do tribal communities need? We need our basic needs met, whether that's our ability to meet them ourselves or whether that's treaty obligations that are from decades and decades ago, and then get out of the way, right? Like we can do it. We have a vastly educated populace. We're really sophisticated. Our governments are just as sophisticated as the others, and so that's what we did. We bought this ranch here. It's here in the heart of the reservation. It's about 10 minutes from our meat processing facility, which we put on purpose in the middle of a USDA food desert, so low access and low income, which means that essentially families have no other options within a short drive or a short walk like you would see in a city. Of course, the nation has food distribution programs in Okmulgee, and there's food distribution programs down south and kind of spread throughout the reservation, but there was not that fresh grocer where someone can go and pick what they want. And so that's what we decided to do, open up that Loop Square Meat Co. and retail space there in the heart of the reservation. And so that's twofold in terms of its attack on sort of food insecurity. It helps folks that typically go get their food at a grocery store. It brings that closer to home, gives them a better option, a fresher option. A lot of them still have allotment lands, and a lot of us still own our original family allotments. And so we thought it was really important to put that processing capacity in to help farmers and ranchers get their own beef on their table, but also for those that may be a little more entrepreneurial or want to kind of enterprise their own product. Well, we have a USDA-inspected facility now, which means that citizens can get their beef, or anybody can get their beef processed at our plant, and they can ship it anywhere within the United States they choose to do so. So there's no restrictions on selling across state lines or selling individual retail cuts or selling beef on the hoof. We can do it all here at this plant. The meat facility has a few sort of unique components, and one of those is the test kitchen. So it's sort of twofold. We use it for two purposes. One is we test a lot of our own recipes in there since we have the retail space and eventually want to get into like food service stuff. But the main reason we put the test kitchen into place was so that we could get citizens who maybe have a salsa or like a barbecue sauce. Our hope is that citizens can come in, develop their recipes. We can have somebody on staff that kind of helps them through the regulatory process of getting that onto the shelf because it is really difficult and cumbersome. That's the ultimate goal with the test kitchen, is to be able to take citizens with like a raw product and help them develop a market for it. Then hopefully we can sell it on the shelves of our retail space as well. All of that's open to the public, native or non-native. So a lot of our programs serve both native and non-native populations, and the meat plant's no exception to that. Kind of as we go forward in terms of our food sovereignty, the nation's really taking a stance on what we value, so what foods are important to us, what access is important to us, and what that value is. And sometimes that may be different from the private sector in terms of value. You know, what's valuable and what is that value. The nation being able to dictate what foods are available and when, what sort of cultural components of our food are things that we need to invest in and protect. We're proud of these things. We're going to promote these things. We're going to make sure that our elders and our working adults and our youth all have access to these things. And that's really what sovereignty is about to us. So, you know, food sovereignty to me is the nation's deciding what's important and what the value of those things are, and we're going to make sure that they're available.